A couple of days ago, I had published a video doing like a stress test and comparing all of the hero talent tank specializations together, trying to see like which tank does the most damage, which tank mitigates the most damage, etc. Now, that test and that video was kind of like an overview. And what I want to do now is kind of start to deep dive into each of the tanks, how they're performing, looking at like logs to try to explain my thought process, and just overall nerd out about each of the tanks. In this video, we're going to look at Brewmaster Monk because Brewmaster is fucking sick. So, starting off, let's talk about Shado-pan. And now, in the test, just in case you didn't view the video, I recommend checking it out, but just in case you like didn't view it for some reason, I did a handful of different attempts as Shado-pan and as Master of Harmony, along with like all of the other hero tank specializations. And I tried to get like average data because, you could have a pull where you live for 3 minutes, another pull where you live for 45 seconds. And so I wanted to try to figure out like a way to get an average. So thank you to all the lovely commenters who like pointed out different practices and like getting certain medians and excluding like higher or lower variables. And so in the future, I'll probably attempt to do that if I have time. But for now, Brewmaster specifically was able to live for a minute 12. Longest pull being a 147, with some of my shorter pulls being just under 1 minute. Brewmaster historically has been a tank that relies on a healer. Not like a spam pocket healer per se, but some type of healer intervention, whether it's through DRs, through like triage healing, whether it's HOTS or like ground-based effects like Healing Rain or F-Flow, etc. So Brewmaster, I think, is in a good spot. Like it can do high self-sustain. It can live for a long time without a healer, especially if being played well and optimized, but also needs a little bit of love from the healers or your group. Anyways, getting into it, I want to get kind of into the kind of breakdown of this data here. And so let's jump over into a log, and we're going to be looking at this pull in particular where I lived for a minute 47. This is my best pull. As you can see here, I did 124k DPS over this time. You're seeing kind of these kind of bursts of damage. This is going to come from various abilities, mostly from Keg Smash, Flurry Strikes, Exploding Keg, from Nizao Stomps. Once I'm outside of those cooldowns, you're going to see the damage becomes like a little bit lower, but still fairly, like, I don't know, static. With the peaks being almost 300k per second, the lows being as low as like 50k per second. This is probably when I was kiting. Just like a nice average. Specifically looking at damage taken per second, it's very static. You see kind of these spikes where I might have kited in a particular scenario, or maybe I did a leg sweep. And so when I got that leg sweep expired, all the mobs hit me at the same time. So my damage spiked. But generally, we see like kind of this like flat line around the 100k damage taken per second, and we're able to heal for 98k, meaning that we're basically able to fully self-sustain until we inevitably do end up perishing. So when we look at our healing, we're going to see kind of these explosive bursts, which is mostly coming from anything from like, you can see like Vital Flame has like, you have like little peaks coming up whenever we like Exploding Keg, for example. But generally speaking, it's going to be like pretty static healing from that, from like Breath of Fire, etc. Some of the bigger bursts that you're actually seeing, these like spikes, are going to be like from our Gloom Splattered Scale, which is a tank trinket. So a massive on use here. Refreshing Drink is actually doing a pretty good job at giving us a nice HOTS. This is being applied every time we Celestia Brew or Fort Brew into a Keg Smash. And so like this HPS is actually kind of high as well. And you can see that the uptime on it is pretty decent. But even thing like Guy Plin's Imperial Brew, every time we hit Purifying Brew, we're getting a nice big chunk of healing from that purified damage. And so Brewmaster's actual self-healing is higher, but one thing that you'll notice is that Celestia Brew is actually only 6% of my healing. I was able to hit it a handful of times. I believe this was a regular use. This was a regular use into a Black Ox Brew reset into just regular uses. Now, this can fluctuate. I could probably spend less time doing Empowered Tiger Palms and more time doing Empowered Keg Smashes to get additional cooldown reduction with Blackout Combo. Something just to consider. But Celestia Brew, even with that optimization, is still doing less than Oxen Fortitude, Elixir, Refreshing Drink, Gift, Celestial Fortune, Guy Plins, and Vital Flame. Celestia Brew clearly needs some type of assistance. I don't think Celestia Brew is meant to be this low. Celestia Brew to me is similar to like Death Strike healing or Ignore Pain or Word of Glory on these other tanks, where Celestia Brew should be our top way that we're mitigating damage. I'm fine if they nerf Refreshing Drink or Elixir or Celestial Fortune in some kind of capacity, but I like to have some type of on-demand mitigation that actually feels substantial. The average absorb of this cast is 100K. My total health pool on beta right now is 600, meaning that it's about 18% average. Now, this modifier actually comes from a couple of different sources. Some people are saying that like a base Celestial Brew is actually really weak, and you're not wrong. So I just popped Celestial Brew here. It's only 89K, which is like 15-ish%, give or take. There's a couple of modifiers to this. It scales with crit and versatility, for example. Another thing is that having more mastery with things like Training of Nizao will also increase the value of said Celestia Brew, and playing Heart of the Ox will also increase the shield size because of the mastery coefficient on the ability. But either way, I think this ability just needs like a lot of love. I think it should be in our top 3 healing, our top 3 heals. So I'm fine if they scale back literally anything else in this kind of breakdown. Now, what's interesting though is like, let's move over to damage done. What I like about Brewmaster in its current state is, first off, Breath of Fire is kind of back. Breath of Fire is doing substantial damage, especially when playing Dragonfire Brew, which no longer has a scaling coefficient with stagger. Basically now, Breath of Fire and Dragonfire Brew just kind of hit hard. So you can see that Breath of Fire up front is doing 18% of my damage. Dragonfire Brew is doing an additional 8%, and then the dot is doing an additional 2%. And so altogether, almost 30% of my damage, 27% 05 to be exact, is just from one button, which is awesome. What I like about this playstyle of Brewmaster is that literally 2 buttons, your Keg Smash, which also will reset your breath when playing Salsalabim Strength, which Keg Smash also procs Flurry Strikes, is literally doing the majority of your damage, which I think is a much better place than how it has been working in like past seasons, where your damage is like mostly Flurry Strikes, but it's cooldown reliant, and then Keg Smash does a little bit of damage, but then everything else is like so even, where threat becomes an issue. What I like about this breakdown is that everything is so heavy loaded into Keg Smash and Flurry Strikes and Breath, is that your main rotation is always going to hold you threat. Now, there's of course some quality of life things that they could improve, like increasing the range or the splash radius of Keg Smash to like 12 yards instead of 8s. Right now, being 8s, there's a lot of times you might go into a pole and you Keg Smash to get threat, but if a mob is a little bit too far away, you're not going to get threat on that target. And with so much of this power being tied to this single ability, with obviously the additional effect of Breath of Fire being requiring Keg Smash to hit the mob to apply the dot, it would just kind of be nice to make Keg Smash a better threat generator. I think the other day, Sinzhu, the WoW head guider, had a nice post about their kind of like wish list. I'm going to see if I can pull that up really quick. And I'll leave this in the link below. I think Sinzhu is not only an excellent player, but an excellent guide writer and kind of breaks things down very nicely. Though little bro needs to stop taking shots about exploding keg at me. Anyways, moving into it, a couple of things that he points out in this article, I think I really agree with. So first off, our choice nodes kind of suck. Keg Smash, as I just mentioned, the AoE radius is just like really lackluster. When you have other tanks that have access to like things like Blood Boil, Thrash, even Thunderclap has like a 12-yard range with a talent that most people actually end up playing. So like all these other tanks have like a bigger radius in terms of generating threat. So Keg Smash just needs to be increased, in my opinion. Spinning Crane Kick, if we actually jump back to the log, I actually don't think I casted Spinning Crane Kick at all, because I'm not like, there's just, and like this is a perfect example. There is no way to really justify Spinning Crane Kick's existence outside of like early gathering, which if they increase Keg Smash radius wouldn't even matter. And so then why do we even have Spinning Crane Kick as an ability, like as a Brewmaster? It doesn't matter. There's no nodes in the tree currently that like bolstered in such a way that will outweigh it's like outweighs the decision of Tiger Palm versus Spinning Crane Kick. It's like, oh, in this situation, when there's 3 or more targets, you Spinning Crane Kick always. Right now, in order to justify hitting Spinning Crane Kick, you need an outrageous amount of targets. And of course, there is the justification that I've made in the past about exploding keg and additional hits. Of course, there is nuance to the scenario where generally, like, it depends on sims, but it's like, in a world where you're hitting like 30 targets, like, you're never gonna have 30 targets, but like in a world where you hit 30 targets with exploding keg, you probably get more damage out of Spinning Crane Kick. But that's just like, that's the absurdity of the justification to actually hit spinning crane kick as an ability besides gathering and then doing insanely large pulls. Besides those two outliers, spinning crane kick just sucks. It's bad. You pretty much don't even need it on your bar. Obviously, most good brewmasters will play it because there are like situational things when you want to actually hit spinning crane kick for like I said, early gathering in a group content. While you're grouping up mobs before you keg smash to make sure they all get hit with a bigger damaging ability. Also, another issue, especially with like Shado-pan, is since they made flurry strikes now proc off of auto attacks, you can't auto attack while you're spinning and craning. You know, when you're spinning and craning, it's just you're kind of just you're AFK for those that 1.5 second channel or 1 second channel. And so I think this article does a good job at like quickly breaking down. It's nothing long. It's like a coagulation. No, accumulate English. Come on, dude, you can do this. It's basically just an article kind of breaking down all of the 3 different specializations for the monks. I gave up on that one, as you can clearly tell. Taking Celestial Brew and Celestial Infusion off the GCD, I generally would agree with this. I think it's never going to happen. I think Blizzard's design goal is to like minimize the amount of GCDs per minute, APM actions per minute. I think taking it off the GCD would feel good taking it off the GCD, but I think I just don't think it's Blizzard's design philosophy, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And then flurry strikes. The issue with the flurry strikes right now is that it's just like it happens so often. And this only really matters if you're like constantly playing and like you have game sound on and stuff. And you guys probably won't hear it because I have game sounds muted right now. I can turn it on though. And then what I can do, I can't hear this, but you guys should be able to hear this. So like as I'm in combat, I'm going to start generating stacks of flurry strikes. And then when I keg smash, you're going to hear said flurry strikes right now. And the problem is that this is happening so often. And then once you summon your cow, which I just did, you're going to get these happening so much more often. Like keg smash, breath. Keg smash, breath. Blackout, tiger palm. I can do like a quick reset here to get keg smash back again into breath. Keg, into breath. And so like the VX is really bad. I don't necessarily mind the visual effect of flurry strikes. I think it's like kind of a cool animation. It is a little too consistent or like a little too frequent. But it's really the sound effects if you're playing with in-game sound. So not super great. Anyways, like I said, Brewmaster feels pretty good to play. I think it does adequate damage. I think its HPS is also fairly high, and I think that's what a lot of players wanted. They wanted a little bit more agency over their own health, which you technically do have. I will say that both consuming Ox Orbs in your current state, or healing spheres, I should say, and Celestial Brew feel undertuned. But having access to things like Awakening Spirit or Vital Flame, extremely impactful for the survivability. I think Refreshing Drink is also fairly good, not just for like group healing, but also self-healing. It's, you know, fairly consistent. Whenever you do drink Celestial Brew or Fortifying Brew, you will get a proc of this. There's a couple of bugs that still exist, though, with the class, which is just something to always keep in mind. But yeah, I'm a really big fan. I think Shado-pan is shaping up to be a really good tank. One concern I have is that, and people have pointed this out, and I generally will disagree with it publicly, but like if it was up to me, I would keep Brewmaster as difficult as it has been. Unfortunately, Blizzard doesn't want to do that. They have pruned down this class significantly. Most of the damaging skill expression from this class feels like it's gone away. And this is a concern I think a lot of people have been bringing up, and it's fair. And I agree with it, but it's like weird because as someone who likes to play the game, likes to talk about the game, I stream the game, I make content for the game. One thing that I've always wanted is I want more people to play Brewmaster. And Brewmaster has just had such a high skill, like high bar for entry. And now they have removed that. And now I think Shado-pan specifically and Brewmaster as a whole is one of the easier tanks to play, to the point where your offensive rotation is 4 buttons in a fairly static order. You now get rewarded even more for hitting your main mitigation, which is Celestial Brew, which also doesn't technically matter because it's such a low portion of her healing. When you do cast that, it actually refreshes Keg Smash. So you don't have to worry about like energy conservation anymore. You can just literally spam your buttons. And there's no cooldowns to actually manage. Like you don't have to worry about dampening, you don't have to worry about diffuse. Fortifying brew, you kind of just like can hit on cooldown because it's really weak anyways, and you hit your cow as an offensive ability. So it's like Brewmaster is kind of getting really boring to play offensively and as a skill expressive tank. Most of your skill expression is going to come from how do you group mobs, maybe slight optimizations, and like your mobility, the way you move and traverse an encounter with roll. If you know how to do those things, you're not going to really express yourself much damage wise. Anyways, that was like a lot of ranting about Brewmaster. There are a handful of bugs. For example, there is a really weird bug right now where Blackout Combo, if you're playing Blackout Combo, for some reason it still counts your old-fashioned, um, the old-fashioned buff. Or what am I trying to say? Basically, you can still benefit from the old Blackout Combo with Breath of Fire. So like, for example, here, let me Keg Smash, then let me Blackout Kick, and then if I Breath of Fire, it's providing a 10% DR. That is not how this works. Or did I just make that up completely? So if we apply a regular breath, it's 5%. When you look at the tooltip, it says 5%. But if you have the Blackout Combo buff, it'll read as 10%. And then when you breath, it applies a 10% DR. So like this is clearly a bug, and something that players can kind of strategically use in like higher content right now, to take 5% less damage, which is kind of important. You could get hit for 100% of your health or 95%. One of those situations you're dead, one of them you're living. So that's like one kind of small but also major bug that is currently happening for the Brewmaster Monks on beta. We're probably going to see a fix to that in the near future, but in my opinion, I think they should add Breath of Fire back to Blackout Combo and actually like make it work properly and make it good and interesting, because I'm kind of tired of like the whole Tiger Palm meta. I want to actually be hitting Keg Smash and Breath of Fire with Blackout combos, or making that kind of those like intuitive decisions in a moment-to-moment combat. That would be like peak Brewmaster gameplay for me. Also, like bring back Purified Chi. I'm very chill with that. Or what they can do is Blizzard could give Brewmasters like Chi like Windwalkers that resets between pulls back to like 2. And then as you purify, you go up to 6 Chi, and then when you use Slush or Brew, it like removes it or whatever. And then like that would be kind of cool. Because it would get rid of the whole like, well, you have to ramp your mitigation at the start of a pull, but also you just like, so now you have like a base Chi to start with, and then you can ramp up to 6 or whatever. I think someone actually recommended that in my chat, and I think it's kind of a cool idea. Anyways, let me quickly talk about Master of Harmony because it was a little bit of a different scenario. Master of Harmony has a ton of flaws right now. I actually did a video a couple weeks ago about it, talking about everything that's really frustrating about the hero talent specialization. But what I can do is I can pull up the log really quick and kind of just like talk through it. So this is a poll where I lived quite literally for just like 2 minutes straight. So actually a little bit longer than Shado-pan, but as you can see, my damage is much, much lower. Breath of Fire is still just as relevant, doing almost 27% of my damage. But if we look at Keg Smash compared to this other run, you're going to notice that it's a very different story. So let me try to find that run again. I think it was here. We'll like do a little zoom just to make sure it's like actually time in combat. And we go to damage being done. And you can see that Keg Smash is doing 18% and Flurry Strikes is doing another 18%. But when we flip over to Master of Harmony, Keg Smash is only doing 12%. And then our Aspect of Harmony is doing even less than that. And that is kind of what is the culprit behind this massive shift in damage. As we start moving down, like Chi Burst does a fair bit of damage here, does a fair bit of burst, as you can see, in these kind of like little gray peaks, especially if they crit. But like even Overwhelming Force with the removal of Rising Sun Kick, Overwhelming Force does like literal shit damage. So it's just like, this isn't rewarding, so we're losing a lot of damage here. Harmonic Surge, this is like the most frustrating part, is if we go to like buffs, and we go to, I don't know what it's considered. Is it okay, it's an uncategorized buff. You're going to see here that like as combat starts, you actually climb faster, then you're able to actually expunge these stacks, expel them, to utilize them, to use them, whatever, right? So yeah, you can cast Vivify and you can cast Tiger Palm now, but like there's not really room in the rotation playing with the Apex talents. And then eventually you get to the point where you just constantly are sitting at 6 stacks and it's really hard to get rid of them. And it'd be interesting to see if there's any like, maybe some nerd in the comment knows, but can I see like buff refreshes somehow, some way? Because the problem is like you hit 6 stacks and then you're stuck at 6 stacks. And on live servers, at least if you're playing like Press the Advantage, there's a way to expel all your stacks in a single global when you hit 10 stacks of Press the Advantage. But in this case, there's no way to actually get rid of these stacks easily without spamming Tiger Palm, which is inefficient. And so the class like is losing a lot of damage from Aspect of Harmony being undertuned, Overwhelming Force missing a kind of an important button from Rising Sun Kick being removed. Tiger Palm hits like shit, and then Harmonic Surge is just like it caps and it just stays capped. And so we're losing so much damage playing this hero talent. Again, it lives just fine. It technically does more healing than Shado-pan. You're going to see even more healing from something like Guy Plins, where because you're purifying for an additional 10% more compared to your 50, it's like it's super great. But yeah, damage taken should be roughly the same over the course of this encounter. So yeah, Master of Harmony just has a lot of issues right now, and I'm not like a big fan of it. I know Mistweavers are kind of having the same similar complaints. It would be funny because if Blizzard just reinstated the damage coefficient or damage modifier of 20% on targets afflicted by your like vitality, your Colas vitality, it would literally just give 20% more damage on this is literally like it just bumps them back up to like 90k, which like or 9 and 88k. No, what am huh? 96k, and then it would be kind of closer. So like I don't know, Blizzard definitely needs to rework the direction that they're taking on Aspect of Harmony. Anyways, I don't want to spend too much longer. I can probably go on for a bit, but that's most of like the main points I wanted to talk about in this video. We should be getting a new build literally in the next day or two. And if there's, we're kind of expecting major changes, but if there isn't, like I'll keep you guys updated, of course. And I plan on doing this type of video for all the rest of the tanks, despite my ability to perform well on them. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know if you have any questions. And thanks so much to all my Patreon and channel members, because you guys are fucking insane. You're so sick. Anyways, I hope you're having a great day, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Peace.